Welcome to Living Martial Arts with Master Ray Gale, aka the Dark Master. Living Martial Arts discusses and examines the everyday exercise, philosophy, and lifestyle of the martial arts enthusiast. The host talks about his own training, past and present, and he also interviews many martial artists to discover how they continue to live their own martial arts journey. Tune in for top tips on how to get the best out of your martial art. Or perhaps you're thinking of starting a martial art. This podcast offers you an easy way to dip your toe in. Sign up for the newsletter at livingmartialarts.com and get regular updates and training tips direct to your inbox. Follow the Dark Master on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Living Martial Arts.
Hi, and hello to the Living Martial Arts podcast fans. It's me back again, the Dark Master, with another episode, another fantastic guest. We've been trying to get together for a little bit now, and we keep missing each other. But thankfully, we've got together, and I have Mr. Aidan Lee with me, who's going to be talking a little bit about martial arts, about himself. How are you doing, Aidan?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks, and it's great to be here after some time. How about you?
Excellent. Yes, yeah, very, very good. Luckily, we got a bit of sunshine today, so I'm very, very happy. I went out this morning, did a bit of training, and although it was a little bit cool, it was nice. The sun's come out at night, so I'm very, very good. So yeah, thanks for joining us, joining me on the podcast, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners will be fascinated, as they always are, with stories about martial arts and things like that. So without further ado, I should say, is perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how your martial arts started.
Yeah, so you were just talking before we started, Ray, about your son. So I'm about one of your son's age. I'm 32. So
all right,
yeah, a little bit younger. But I've been doing martial arts since I was about 4 or 5 years old. So my late father was Master Dave Lee. He had one of his kickboxing school in Slough, which was Warlords Kickboxing Academy. So he started that in the 80s. So I started there naturally. And from the ages of about 4 or 5 till about 10, I was training very regularly. And then I started to participate and teach in the classes around that age. And slowly but surely just built up from there. My plan actually was to, once I finished uni, where I studied philosophy, I was like, all right, I'm going to go professional into fighting, mostly like the K1 style. But really long story short, I had like a lot of injuries. And then the money was drying up, especially when it comes to trying to fight at that level. And I was getting a lot of damage and health issues and things like that. So I eventually let go of that. But it took me a while to kind of bounce back and realize that martial arts for me could be more than fighting, and especially with what your mission here is, Ray, you're doing with the podcast. Like, it's about how can you live life more as a martial artist. So it actually took me a while to bounce back from that. Went into shall we say, like a deep depressive state. I had a bad time, had lots of more health issues, because that was my mission, that was my goal. And I thought, all right, this is what my purpose of using martial arts for was: to fight, to compete, to win, to be an aspiring world champion and all that stuff. But once I bounced back from it, eventually I realized, well, okay, I can actually get back to what I felt like was the true utility and usefulness of martial arts, which was really, in simple terms, to have that physical, mental, and spiritual development all wrapped up in one discipline. So it took me some time, but long story short, after that, I thought I'd go back to doing something that I love. So I opened a small personal training studio, but I got a little bit, I won't say bored, but a little bit, I felt like something was missing. So I went back to my roots and started my own martial arts school where, excuse me, my dad, before he passed, he used to help out and taught all the way until he left as well, which was nice. So we had that. Even though it was my school now, he was helping out, which is great. But then a couple of years ago, just before my second child was born, I felt like something was missing from the martial arts world that I couldn't capture in a school.
Sure.
And maybe you can relate to this, Ray, maybe not. But, training is very different to when I started training, and I'm sure even more so when you were.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be great to hear more of that from your side. But I felt like the reasons and why people were doing it nowadays was was very hard to find the right person who wanted to come for that physical, mental, spiritual development. So now instead, I help and mostly focus with dads to what I call build a warrior's physique and lead their family by example. But we do it remotely, so I can really help the people who are really serious about wanting to change and develop.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting concept. Yeah, I mean, there are, as you mentioned, training has changed, and not just changed, but I think it's developed, and there are many more aspects to it. From the youngest that I teach, who is 4, and the eldest that I teach, who is 84, and right across the age range, male and female. And when I started, it was generally teenage lads who wanted to fight or learn to defend themselves, and and that was it. The training was quite brutal. But you mentioned, so I'm just writing a few notes down as you go. You mentioned the the physical and mental benefits. I'm personally more aware of that now than I was then. The physical benefits for me was at that time was getting into shape so I could fight internationally, but I see it as a very different type of benefit now. And perhaps you can allude to that because of the type of people you teach, talking about dads particularly. I see the actual benefits of martial arts. For me, people ask me why I do it, and I say, well, I do it for longevity, keep myself fit. It's a good all-round type of fitness, strength, flexibility, mobility, and so on. So, I don't know, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about that, how you see it for dads in particular.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it just now, but also earlier, Ray, is that, you were saying, you still train most days, and that's great. You see a lot who still say they are martial artists or practitioners, but they're not living up to it like you are. So it's really amazing to see, you do that. And I think more than ever, in the modern world we live in, with the kinds of distractions, vices, and hedonistic paths that are around us, and distractions that can take us in all sorts of directions, and especially the young ones as well, as you're helping with too, is we need a physical and mental path to go on. And I feel like martial arts is one of the very few disciplines, I actually can't think of others unless you piece things, different disciplines together, that inherently has physical, mental, and spiritual development involved within it at its core. Some arts, of course, have a creed within it. Some have more of a philosophy behind them, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't matter whether it's, I know you're more taekwondo and maybe a bit more kickboxing and other arts, but it doesn't matter about the art. I found is that, right, as Bruce Lee said, is how can we take what's useful and discard the rest?
Sure.
Things together to make it uniquely your own. So I think really why I guess it kind of answers the question partially, is like why I focus more on dads, is that I feel like if dads have the right tools and resources and can become the right role models for more of the kids, and especially the young boys in society, a lot of the problems we're seeing now with various social and behavioral issues in young kids and society around us can be solved if we had much stronger male father role models around us.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think I've often, when I look at my students and I see the students that do really well, they've often got really good support systems, mums and dads who support them and so on. And I think I always now try and encourage the families to come along and do it as a group. Particularly the dads for young boys, because I think particularly boys, there's a lot of there's an absence of really strong role models. There are role models, but I don't know if they're the right ones, to put it that way. So it's a little bit different. Just coming back to what you were saying about the mental side of martial arts. It's one thing for me that I found in my later years of martial arts, and I don't know whether it comes with age, but certainly the philosophy side of martial arts and that mental side, I don't think gets enough attention early on. And I can see why, because obviously when you start and you're a young lad, you want to fight, and you're not really interested in talking about the spiritual side of martial arts. But do you find that the people that you teach are quite receptive to that? Maybe because they're a bit older, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's quite let me put it this way. One of the things I did, even with the martial arts school and even with the personal training studio, but especially with the school, is I tried to put this philosophy into the classes. So in each class, we'd have a small discussion about some philosophical element. When I was at uni, because I studied mostly Greek Western philosophy, and then obviously martial arts is typically more Eastern philosophy, and there's great lessons in both. You know,
Sure.
we blend and take from either side, but it takes a certain kind of person, like you say. A lot of the people who come and they don't see it as much more than fighting, I'm not as open to that. But slowly with time, I
Yeah.
found those who want to get better at it, because if they understand themselves better, then they can understand they can actually relay that into their physical development and get better physically as well. So if they do take on even just a few small lessons from the mental side,
Sure.
I'm not surprised they're actually better as a fighter, as a martial artist, and so on. So I would say it takes the right person, but and also how it's delivered. You know, if we can deliver it in small, simple nuggets which are digestible and which resonate to people's day-to-day lives. You know, it's not some hardcore philosophical concept. It's all right, well, how can I be a better father? How can I be more calm? How can I be more present? How can I be more, loving to my wife? Whatever it is that you be better at, how can I be the best at my work? How can I be more focused, and so on?
Yeah.
Well, let's make the lessons more applicable to the day-to-day life. And when we do that, then I find the results are a bit more, they stick more.
Sure. So, I mean, coming in, you've got for example, a dad. I don't know, they haven't done a lot of physical. They're in their early 40s, let's say early to middle 40s, and they've come to you. What would that program look like? What would you say? Right, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's a fairly big question. I'll try and answer it like
It is. Sorry about that. I know it's a bit like when people say, oh, you know what, the students do. Well, it's difficult because there's no average student really, because they're all very different and they all need different things. But I don't know, work with that.
No, I think it is a good question to get a good overview. And then, as you say, it's like, right, which path do we take from here? But I think the main thing I've realized that I can do differently, for example, compared to when I had the school, just purely because of numbers. Like, all right, we can say, what can we understand about you as an individual? That means that the program that follows when it comes to training, nutrition, your stress management, your sleep, your hormones, your psychological state, the state of your development when it comes to self-development, or what I prefer to focus on is philosophy. So let's do all the assessments necessary to get the answers to give you the roadmap that you need. So for example, before I give a training program to someone, I'm like, all right, let's do a biomechanics assessment. Let's do a posture assessment. Let's do a lifestyle assessment.
Sure.
Let's do nutrition assessment, and so on and so forth. All these assessments give the data and the picture that we need to say, all right, well, what do you need now that I can see all this data? Where are you stuck? What are your problems? What are your pains? What are your problems? And where have you quit before? Because if they didn't need the help, I guess they wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah, sure.
It's really been a massive learning curve for me as well, but it's also about learning about the blind spots that people have when they don't really realize and think, oh, I just need to get into shape. But
yeah,
typically it's a lot more than that. It's even how their work impacts their home life, their relationships with their kids, whether they're young or old, it doesn't matter. It's like the role model they're being, how they're leading their family, their wife, and so on. So
yeah,
I try to look at it as holistically as possible. But if you're talking training, yeah, it's all right. It can be very much data driven. Some of the other things like relationships, leadership, and so on is a bit more of a one-to-one conversation.
Yeah, no, that's quite good, because I think that one thing that if students come to me about different things, or they're struggling with that, then I suppose it's in a way by chance, because I've done a couple of courses on nutrition, and I've currently going through a program as a breathing instructor and stuff like that. So it's interesting, because if I had the knowledge that I have now when I was younger teaching, and those things would say, why can't you do this exercise? Get on with it. Well, they might, their nutrition might be poor. So, they may be struggling from that point of view. That's why they can't do certain things, or they're not developing, as they would, as they should. Let's put it that way. So
Yeah.
I think that approach is really, really, really good. So do you have, when you're taking individuals through this, do you have I'm assuming that you do, a goal that you set for them, and then once they reach that goal we can reset another goal and so on, during the program?
Yeah, for sure. And just touching on what you said there before I answer the goals, I think you made a good point about, especially that old school kind of styles, like just get on with it. But now I realize that people have much more problems than we already anticipated they did back then, or different problems at the very least. So yeah, in terms of goals, what we like to do is set like three big goals. So of course, people typically, even when you come to a martial arts, they say, "Oh, I want to get my black belt, I want to compete, I want to get in shape," and so on and so forth. And there's so many goals. I've got an injury, I want to get rid of that, and so on. Even things like that, which seem insignificant, but so what are the? I like to look at what are the big three goals that they can focus on, and that if they achieve those three goals, it would also knock off some of the other secondary or tertiary goals as well.
Yeah.
So, for example, if they are significantly, not that need to be or are a lot of the time, but if they are significantly overweight, well, that's going to be one of the big goals, because that's, if you've got injuries, you've got problems and so on, that's going to cause a lot of pain to your posture, mechanics, and so on. So that might be one of them. But if especially the average kind of guy's not necessarily hugely overweight, but their posture, movement patterns are quite bad. So a lot of the times it'd be, all right, how can we get rid of a lot of the pain and build the strength necessary to support the structure and realign the structure so that it's working as it should.
Sure.
That's quite hard to do at times from from a coaching perspective, but two, from a student to take that on board as well. But if you focus on less goals and do them better, it's like in martial arts, you focus on a few fundamental techniques, make them amazing.
Yeah.
You don't need all of the 101 flashy techniques. Yeah, they're nice, but that's a secondary.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. No, I totally agree. And also, I mean, I don't know what. Sorry, I'm wobbling now. I was just talking about. I was going to talk about this, and this is what I tend to do. Is I tend to, instead of getting people to fit martial arts into their life, I try and get people to fit their life into martial arts, and to think of it as not a twice a week thing, but a daily thing, an hourly thing. I'm actually on a balance board, you see. So if I fall off, then you'll know what's happening. So I say to them, don't take extra time out of your schedule, just fit a little bit of martial arts into that schedule. I tell the kids, when you're brushing your teeth, stand on one leg. We have like a one leg stance that you can stand and brush your teeth, or stand in a horse or sitting stance while you're brushing your teeth, strengthen your legs, so that you're doing it, okay, through your daily life. And you're not going, right, I'm going to training now, I do my martial arts, and as soon as you come out, that's it, we stop until the next lesson. So I don't know whether that's something that you try and promote.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And like you said, you're trying to put it into the day-to-day things that they do. Hopefully everyone brushes their teeth every day, so you have to do that. Why not something else at the same time? And I think that what you said there is like probably one of the most important things, is that rather than you trying to schedule that 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, you and I both know, whether you're a seasoned martial artist or a beginner who's looking to get good or get fit, is that if your mindset is about, I need to fit this in, you only go so far.
Yeah.
And what the way you suggested is more about, all right, how do I make myself more of a martial artist? My life becomes to be more like a martial artist, and physically, mentally, all the results will come from that. Yeah, so for sure. One of the things I really like to do as well, especially with those, because I work with dads typically, they train with their kids. So not only just, for example, they do the training together, but for example, that they pass on the skill to their child. So they teach them, do pad work, bag work, shadow boxing, and so on. And once you do that, not only are you learning it for yourself, but it's like you learn a second time every time you teach.
Yeah.
When you teach them, you also get better understanding, but selflessly, they also pick up a valuable life skill in terms of martial arts and self-defense.
Yeah, and it is great exercise. I actually spent many years ago. I spent 2 days in David Hayes boxing school, actually, because in the 80s I did a little bit of kickboxing in the ring, as most young lads do to, to try and hit someone really hard and then hit me hard and see what happened. So that was it. But it was quite enjoyable. And also doing some of the boxing skills in that boxing school was quite good as well. I recently, I think it was an interview. I think it was Jordan Peterson I was listening to, said that particularly young lads need that outlet of some physical outlet. But I also think, as you are saying here, I also think that as males, and particularly as men, we need that as well. You need to sit down in the sofa and say, right, I deserve a 5-minute sit down.
Yeah, exactly. Because we might need it for different things. That teenager might have a lot of testosterone and unexpressed energy and so on, but we need it for different things. We have lots of work stress, lifestyle stress, even responsibility stress, and which can take a physical and mental toll. And it's good to see you're still at it and not just talking about it. And even now, you said you're on a balance board, right? Is that right?
Yes, I'm actually on a I'm actually see I'm on a balance.
Okay. You're not joking.
I do that while I'm working, so that I can do it subconsciously, and my body tends to do it. Because people often say to me, how do you fit in it? And I said, well, I haven't really got much time. I said, I've got 4 kids, albeit 2 of them are older. They look after themselves. I like to play guitar. I like to play harmonica. Do other things. So actually, what I try and do is I try and make martial arts my life, not just the times that I'm teaching, but outside of that, and sort of challenge myself. Sometimes I get myself in trouble physically. Things. But this morning I was in the park and I was running backwards. I was trying to sprint backwards in the park. Had some really strange looks. But occasionally, if I'm walking in town, I'll walk backwards and things like that. So it just, living as a martial artist, I just think that if you stop doing something, you'll lose the ability to do it. And so I try and do lots of different things, lots of different skills with my body, so don't lose that.
Yeah. And is your I'm curious as well to understand, is your focus primarily like from a martial arts perspective is still like taekwondo, or are you at a stage where you're like blending and changing things, or where are you at with that?
Well, I'm sort of blending and changing. I think I appreciate all the different martial arts. I appreciate. I still love my taekwondo because it was the jumping and spinning and all those kicks. I was quite athletic from that point of view. So that's the type of thing that I liked. I can't do that so much now, but I try and blend a few things. I do things like trampoline hit sessions here. I've got my little trampoline. I've got a little exercise bike and do some hit sessions on that. I used to do a lot long distance running. I don't do that anymore. I do sprints, and just general things. Just keep it very, 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 very fresh. And I think the main thing is that my goal now is not the next competition, but it's the ability that next year I'll feel fit and healthy, and I'll go, oh, that really hurts. Why have I got that pain? I feel tired. But like you said before, I think that holistic approach is important. So I do prioritize my sleep. I prioritize my nutrition, and just a general approach to keep myself doing what I love as long as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, and because you've taken it as a lifestyle, that's so key. It's not just about going to class once or twice a week.
No,
it's you. It's Ray, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that sort of trying to, I see myself as a bit of I don't know how you feel about. I know that you're still quite young compared to myself, but I see myself as a bit of a role model in front of the class, so I can say, well, actually, I'm this age, I've been doing this long, but I'm still trying to keep that, not just keep that level, but improve on what I've where I am today. So next year, actually, I don't want to be further back. I want to be further forward.
Mm. Yeah, and that's inspiring. Not to say you couldn't at all, but and not to talk disparagingly of others, but unfortunately, you do see a lot, especially in the martial arts world, who don't lead by example. So the fact that you're still doing that, that means your students have got someone who they can look up to, who's still saying, regardless of age, situation, or this or that, you can continue, and not just continue, but hopefully, get better year on year. So you can't ask for a better teacher, at least from that standpoint.
Well, hopefully, and as I said, for me, because obviously with martial arts, there's a lot of children in martial arts now. There wasn't in the 70s, but there's a lot of children now, and sort of saying to them, well, actually, one of the things I say to my kids in my class, I want you to do this exercise or do this, keep doing it until you're 85, and they all laugh at me. I said, no, I'm actually serious. I said, yeah, but my dad can't even do this. I said, I know, but that's because they've stopped doing it. So I often say to the kid, I see the smiles on their faces. 85? I said, yeah, 85. And then just do a little bit.
So, exactly. Yeah. If you can do that, 85, you'd be like those old grandmasters. That's what we're all here for, right?
Yeah. So do you have back to your with the dads thing, do you have any goals with that program? Do you have a goal into developing it in any other ways at the moment, or is it just as it is?
Yeah, I do have a few ways, but right now we're focusing on the on the online remote coaching element of it. But later we plan to have some retreats. I was just telling you before started the episode is that I just moved back from Sri Lanka a few months ago. So later we plan to do some retreats out there and a few other things like that. When we closed our martial arts school, I said I wouldn't open a martial arts school again, but I might have some vision or idea to open something like some sort of Shaolin-esque temple, but not a modern normal martial arts school, but something where people come and get more immersed in the experience. So maybe something like that, but that's all in the future right now. I just some mastering one thing and helping that one group of people really get the results they want. So I think we've all been a bit guilty of trying to do too many things at once, but within this one thing, there's lots and lots to achieve and do. So this is the current mission and the focus.
Yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Because ideally for me, I would like to perhaps, I don't know, maybe I mean, myself and my colleague, we did have a standalone martial arts school many years ago, but cost and everything else was so difficult. And I remember we went to Korea actually in 2017, and we went to some of the monasteries where some of the monks were doing martial arts, and it was fantastic. And they were meditating and they were spending their day doing that. And I was thinking, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. But unfortunately, in the real world, I came back and I couldn't do that.
Yeah, imagine if you could pull that off. I think in the West as well, it's definitely a tough concept to sell. But I'm sure there is a market for it, but not like it'd be very hard to get people in there full time and make it that a full time setup.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but it's something. I mean, you're obviously what you're doing now is based around dads and older people. Do you teach any younger people at this time?
Not at the moment, no. But like you said, when we used to have the martial arts school, it was like I don't know, maybe 60-70% kids and 30-40% adults. So yeah, even when I was growing up, and I'm
sure
it's about half your age, I was a lot of the times one of the youngest kids there. And the odd other kid came in, but otherwise it was mostly men and adults. Times have definitely changed. One thing I did like about teaching kids is more so I would say, how can I say, it's like a purity within them. If you find the right kids, some of them are absolutely amazing. If they have the right attitude and they have this blank slate where they can come in and pick up fast, that's great. I was actually, side note, I should say, my main student at the moment is my son, so he's 3. So,
oh wow, okay,
I can teach him. But as in other kids, no. Look, I teach my son and also my daughter, but she's not quite 2 yet, but she's actually learning a fair bit. But just like him as well, it's about being in the right environment. And what I found quite interesting is before, when he was about like 1.5, 2, I tried to push him a bit more into it, but he's very fiery and in a good. but I need to channel that. And he didn't respond to it as well. So I've just been slowly chipping away at it and building him up. And now he's actually at a level where I'm really proud of that. Well, I've actually not done that much training with him, but he's got a pretty good skill set. So in a year or so, I'm really excited to see, how he'll turn out.
Yeah. So during back to the the older sort of dads and stuff that who you're teaching. I mean, obviously there's the martial arts, but there's the other side of the for want of better words, strength training and more that side of it. So what sort of is it traditional sort of functional exercises that you use, or that there seems to be quite a thing at the moment with movement, movement patterns and things like that. Do you do standard movement patterns, or do you change it depending on the individual, their requirements?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find that, so like you, I guess I've been in this for a while, and I think what I found is I've tried lots of different methods. I've tried to train personally and also teach students, but tried bodybuilding, I've tried CrossFit, I did yoga for a long time. I don't do it anymore, but I did so many different methods. But what I found now is basically like human movement as a whole comes down to optimizing for 4 core movements. So one is standing, because we're bicycle. Then it's throwing, so it could be throwing a punch, throwing the ball, or whatever. So standing, throwing, running, and then sprinting. So it's like if you can stand, throw, run, and sprint well, like you're doing sprints, in your position, that's amazing. Then typically your posture, your mechanics will be much better than someone who's not able to optimize for those 4 things. So I don't follow a set methodology. The closest one is, I don't know if you've heard of functional patterns, but they're pretty good. They're worth looking at. Yeah. That's probably like the closest methodology, because I found their strength training protocols to be the most robust and to be the ones that are most in line with human anatomy and biomechanics. But I've tried a lot of others, which I found either damaging or have, if you like, muscular gains, but then from a functional perspective, when you actually try and move, you feel quite stiff and so on. But I've added my own twists into that as well. And what I'd like to just say, like linking this back to martial arts, and you'll definitely know this, Ray, is that martial arts, if it didn't work, it wouldn't be functional. So, apart from the odd art that maybe you don't agree with or whatever, but generally effective martial arts works because the body mechanics work.
Yeah.
And, you have to be able to rotate, you have to be able to push and pull and so on. And once you get all these things linked up, that's what we should optimize for, is that, well, if you're training, your strength training not only makes you stronger, but then say when you go and throw a punch, you throw a kick, you should feel that difference. You should feel the connection from head to toe. If you feel stiffer after doing some strength training and throwing a punch, then my opinion on that is that the training doesn't make sense. The strength training doesn't make sense. It should flow. It should make you feel better and stronger.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. No, that's really really good. I mean, we're sort of coming to the end to a certain degree, but is there anything about your program that you'd like to share? I mean, just after that, we'll talk about perhaps where people can follow you, but anything else that you'd like to share on that?
No, not really. I'd just like to maybe give a free resource to your audience, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, certainly.
So I put together this free training. It's just like a 25-minute or so video explaining like the 5 smart ways to train. And it kind of involves what we just talked about there, about the strength and martial arts and blending the two. And if you train like this, basically the idea is that you'll be able to guarantee the results you get.
Sure.
And all it takes is about 30 minutes a day. Some of my students train a bit longer, 45, but typically like you don't actually need to train that long. If you know what you're doing the right thing, and it's structured with these 5 principles in mind.
Yeah.
So you can just visit. I can give you the link, but it's just my website.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes as well. But go for it.
Yeah, perfect. It's just fitroots.co.uk. So it's FITROOTS.co.uk, and then /train-smart, and that's it.
Brilliant. Well, listen. Thank you very much. Aidan, I appreciate it. Just after we finish the podcast, hang on, we'll have another quick chat. But I just want to say thank you very much. I think that certainly in this day and age where unfortunately people aren't I don't think getting enough physical exercise. They're not moving enough. Not necessarily physical exercise, but they're not moving enough. Leading quite sedentary lifestyles. Really, I think people need to do more. And I think something like what you're offering there, particularly to dads and so on, to get them back in the game, I think for them will be a real game changer. And I hope people take you up on it, and I hope you're very successful with it. And it keeps on growing for you. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much, Ray. It honestly has been a pleasure to be here, but also your receptiveness, openness, and also how you run what you're up to as well. It's also inspiring to see you still walking, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk as well. So yeah, thank you for being a great martial artist.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to the Living Martial Arts podcast fans for listening to this. Another great guest. Hopefully I'll be back with you soon. I'll be just check out the show notes. We'll put some information from Aidan in the show notes. Thank you very much, and hopefully catch up again soon. Thank you.